chest up, shoulders back. Today we're going to talk about how I got caked up without doing perhaps the most popular glute exercise on the planet today, the hip thrust. And quick warning for you guys, this video is going to be pretty sus, so to speak. I've said this before, guys, if you watch lifting content and you're not comfortable seeing another man's body, I don't know what you're doing here. You might want to find another form of content to watch, but we're going to talk today about how to grow your ass. And a lot of guys like to scoff at leg training, glute training, really a lot of lower body training in general. I've told you guys this many times, I am an ex-leg day skipper of multiple years myself. But in terms of lower body training, guys, it's not just for only looks or only performance. It really benefits everything when it comes to your overall training program and your overall look, no matter how you slice it. And something a lot of upper body bros fail to realize is that women do like a bigger butt on a guy, all right? I have received many anecdotes of this in my own life. I recently put up an Instagram story of me doing squats, and a girl I know sent me like the peach emoji replying to the story. I've had another girl in the past too literally say to me, "Oh my God, your butt is so big," right? Like, this is not hyperbole, guys. This actually will happen to you. I do want to say this. I'm not telling you not to do hip thrusts or glute bridges. If you are somebody who has a severe case of pancake ass, or if you have been a leg day skipper for a long time and trying to change that, you may really benefit from direct glute work in some form. And the hip thrust, as you have more than likely seen on social media thanks to the fitness girls today, it is extremely popular. Hip thrusts just take a long time to set up, especially if you're remotely strong at them. I mean, a lot of girls can hip thrust 315 plus, or at least like 275 if they're pretty strong. If you're a dude who can squat and deadlift 400 plus pounds, even mid 300s plus, you more than likely can hip thrust 4 to 5 plates aside for numerous reps. But with that said, let's now dive into the exercises that I do myself. And we're going to start in probably the most important category, which is the hip hinge. Many people think of the hip hinge movement pattern as a main hamstring builder, and it absolutely is going to hit the hamstrings, but it hits the glutes just as hard, and ultimately it hits the low back a lot too. Probably the most well-known exercises in this kind of slot are sumo and conventional deadlifts, and those are absolutely going to grow your glutes. I think you can make the case that sumo might grow your glutes a bit more or less depending on your limb lengths and kind of the stance you take. Regardless though, both power deadlifts, so to speak, deadlifts from a dead stop on the floor, are going to grow your glutes. The reason being, your glutes are forced to stretch pretty considerably if you do this hip hinge pattern with proper form. Now, if you do this like a lot of commercial gym schmucks, if you just candy cane over, keep your legs totally straight, you're not gonna get much involvement there. But if you lead with the hips and keep a flat back or a relatively flat back the entire time, you're absolutely going to stretch the glutes out during this movement pattern. Now, I've told you guys in the past, I'm not a huge fan of power deadlifts, so to speak, for volume, especially once you get pretty strong. They get very taxing, especially on parts like the low back. So for that reason, I think a better exercise for glute hypertrophy here is going to be the Romanian deadlift or the stiff-legged deadlift, even though you can do all of them if you would like to. But I really find for myself, guys, that something like a Romanian deadlift with a controlled eccentric, a controlled lowering portion, again, not this time under tension and bra nonsense, not milking it out for 5 seconds, but a solid roughly 2-second eccentric where you can kind of get a good stretch on the way down, I believe is optimal for growth in this area. And you can do this with a barbell, with a trap bar, with dumbbells. It's ultimately up to you and your equipment. I've even done this myself on something like the hammer shrug machine, as you see here. I don't think this is the best thing per se to do on this machine, but it is an option if you need that in your disposal. And one last note on the hip hinges, guys, we cannot leave this section without talking about the forbidden door of exercises, and that is the good morning. I've told you guys recently I've been doing good mornings on pretty much a weekly basis, generally 3 sets of say 6 to 8 reps. I'm at the point now, guys, where I'm up to a 225 plus good morning for almost 8 reps. And you can make the case here that these are a little bit more power good morning, like they're not totally strict. I might be squatting a little bit at the bottom, so to speak. Given my leverages, guys, as long as my legs are for my torso, I don't think I can physically good morning any significant weight without kind of doing this, getting this hip involvement. You can make the case that I could lower the weight to get it more strict. I've been doing them like this though. My back has felt great, and I know that good mornings are concerning because the positioning can be awkward, they can be tough on many people's joints. They're just a scary looking exercise. I might do a full video on good mornings coming up with the pros and cons. Comment below if you would like to see that, but do not write off the good morning here, guys. The glute stretch on this exercise is really, really good, especially given that the bar is on your upper back. So you can get the same equivalent hypertrophy of a Romanian deadlift with the good morning with 100 or less pounds in many cases. So that is the hip hinge portion, and next we're gonna move on to the squats. And squats here for the glutes, guys, are pretty basic. I think everybody knows the 2 primary types of squats, front and back. And in my opinion, I do believe that the front squat, at least in my own experience, hits the glutes a little bit more so, given that you stay more upright. So if you can do front squats, I absolutely recommend at least learning them. But the best alternative to me for the front squat is the SSB squat. In my experience, the SSB weight, both in terms of 1 rep max and rep work, is really similar, almost directly parallel to the front squat. And once again, you can still do traditional back squats here. You absolutely can grow an ass doing typical back squats. Regardless of how you squat, the glutes have to stretch, assuming you squat to parallel or below. And once again, guys, I've said this before, if you are squatting or deadlifting for that matter, engage your glutes at the top. I cannot stand when I watch people do these squats and they go up and then they kind of don't lock out the knees and they kind of hover in this area. So not only will engaging your glutes when squatting help grow your butt, it's also going to keep your low back safer and help you lift more weight with more power. So we finished up with the squats and the deadlifts. Now we're going to move on to more direct glute training per se with lighter exercises. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, it's the algorithm. So the next area of focus here are machine-assisted glute exercises. And this commonly is going to include the hyperextension, the glute ham raise, and the reverse hyper. Now, most commercial gyms I've been to, guys, do not have the latter two. They don't have a reverse hyper or a glute ham raise. Those are definitely useful. I don't want to spend too much time on them here because I just don't think most people have access to them. We're going to talk quickly though about the hyperextension. This machine looks very simple, but if you learn how to use it properly, you can absolutely grow a bigger butt with it. And probably the most common mistake I see on the hyperextension, guys, people have this tendency to just grab, it's always a 25 or a 45 pound plate, and they just mindlessly do some reps. I don't know what it is about this exercise and machine, guys, but people only want to grab a plate. And it's like, you understand you can grab any other form of weight in the gym, right? You can grab dumbbells, you can get an easy bar, you can even load a barbell or a mini barbell to fit the space. But people's obsession with grabbing just a 45 over and over, it violates progressive overload. If you're not upping the weight considerably, you're not going to really get the benefits of the exercise. So when doing the hyperextension, to really focus on the glutes, you want to keep them engaged per se, even as you do the eccentric on the way down. Now you can't keep your ass totally tight the entire time because you're not going to be able to move, but as you're going down, think about kind of keeping the hips and the feet turned out a little bit as you descend, and then squeeze the butt and push your legs into the padding as you come back up. This is going to keep a good amount of stress on the glutes the entire time, and you're not going to have to use much weight to do this either. You can see me in this clip, guys. I believe I'm holding 60-pound dumbbells, and again, the range of motion here is not that extreme, but it's not supposed to be. You see many people too on the hyperextension, they basically like flop up and down like dolphins coming out of the ocean or something. You can do that, but the more higher up you go, the more it kind of goes into the low back and that type of thing. And if you stretch extremely far down on this exercise too, you're going to get a good amount of hamstring. Now, once again, that's totally fine. But if you're looking to kind of directly target the glutes, I think hovering in this mid-tier range of motion right here is probably the best bet. And then the final options we're going to look at here are unilateral exercises for the legs, which also can target the glutes at the same time. And this is going to be the split squat, the lunge, and even the split Romanian deadlift. I've seen this on social media a number of times, and I also see a lot of girls in the gym do this. They seem to say that whenever you do a split squat, the further you kind of hinge your torso over, the more you lean forward, the more glute activation you get. I've never really tested that myself, but at least theoretically, as I can think of that exercise, that would make sense, because as you lean forward and the hips start to poke back a bit, you're going to get more glute engagement that way. And don't sleep on lunges either, guys. Doing lunges, whether it's walking or stationary, I like reverse lunges a lot for this type of glute exercise. But lunges absolutely are going to work on the glutes because, again, it's similar to the squat. As you step back with the leg that is moving, the glute on that side has to stretch as the leg is moving back. The hips are also in motion too here. Remember, guys, the glutes play a big role in the movement of the hips. And if the hips are moving in some capacity, the glutes have to be working by default. And you can also do the split Romanian deadlift. This is more of a low-key exercise. I don't see a whole lot of people do it. I have a tutorial on this exercise. You can click on the video in the top corner if you would like to see that. But any sort of single leg exercise, guys, once again, assuming you're not just totally shorting the range of motion, especially if you can enhance the range of motion with an elevated platform or smaller weights being held. And then the final area we're going to talk about very quickly, because I don't do these myself, but I see a lot of girls do them, are the cable kickbacks, the donkey kicks, maybe like crab walk side to side with bands. You can also do the OBGYN machine when you spread your legs apart. I remember my one girl said one time, she looked at another chick and was like, "Oh my God, her side booty's not big enough." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Her side booty," which is like the glute medius. But this has been it, guys, how to get a bigger butt. Thank you for watching. Tell me if you have any questions or comments down below, any recommendations for future videos. As always, thank you to the Patreon supporters, and I will catch you guys next time.